one man saying that is fine. If that's your opinion and you're not in it, that's fine. But there is an entire market of millions and millions of people that agree that it is a store of value. So, you can think one thing, but there's also a market, and markets tend to become efficient over time.
We do know that you will always get paid in Hex on a daily basis. And that is truly the miracle that we call Hex, because it is trustless interest, trustless yield. Nothing will stop that contract from running.
Well, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. Welcome in, everybody, to the Creed of Crypto live stream. I am Broke Boy Crypto, along here with my co-host and friend Crypto Ewok. We've got a hell of a show for you tonight for reasons that you might be able to imagine. Apologies for the voice. I am definitely a bit under the weather, but we're going to make it through and have a great show tonight. At first, this show was mainly going to be about the Richard Hart court case with the corrupt SEC last week, and we will do a full breakdown. We're going to get into so many juicy details of all of that because, my God, are they juicy. But not only that, Donald Trump becomes the 47th president of the United States last night. And I don't think you can call it anything other than a landslide. Dominant victory in every single way. Not only wins the Electoral College going away, wins the popular vote, the first time a Republican's done it in 20 years, I believe. They're winning the House. They're winning the Senate. You couldn't really ask for a more clear-cut victory. He wins every single swing state. Pure and utter dominance. 20 million votes that the Democrats had in 2020 did randomly not show up here in 2020.
Yeah, right.
And we're going to get to many angles of it. I mean, of course, even if you're not somebody out there that is a huge fan of Trump or whatever, like, that's understandable. But I mean, this is obviously a crypto show, and what we're talking about, not even necessarily to be political or anything, but I mean, we're interested in who's going to have the best legislation for us, because our values are obviously self-sovereignty, freedom, all these things, and all the things that crypto can provide to somebody. And when you've had one party who has been going out of their way with the likes of Elizabeth Warren, who is disgusting as a human being, to try to stifle innovation, push everything out of this country, and then another party who maybe they haven't done like a million amazing things for it, but at the very least may leave it alone. We're going to favor one candidate over the other, obviously. So, great to have you guys here. Addy Willow, DJ and Moonboy, of course, Valiant Low-Key, Marco, welcome in, The Rat, Sean O'Malley, Hammy 228. I have a feeling we're going to get some new faces in here tonight. This is bullish times. I mean, we are ready for liftoff. I haven't even said yet, Bitcoin has hit a new all-time high, and could very well do it while we're on the air tonight. I mean, it did last night during the election when things were looking bullish for Trump. ETH just started to perk up a couple hours before we went on the air. Things are just, it's almost like pinch me at this point. Things are really, really looking good right now after 3 years of absolute dog shit. I think we deserve being thrown a bone here. So, all that said, how are you feeling tonight, Ewok?
Pretty damn great, actually. Couldn't have gone much better. I know probably half the country's not feeling the same way right now. Kind of how we felt.
47% or so.
Something like that. How we felt like kind of what happened last time. So, feeling pretty good. The markets are definitely reflecting that. We can just jump right into the charts because it's looking super bullish. So, I'll bring those up here and we'll kind of touch on this. But it's looking great. Nice big green candle.
Yeah, we'll kind of start with Bitcoin and ETH, look at the Pulsechain ecosystem quickly, then we'll dive deep into the election, then we'll get to the Richard Hart case from last week, and obviously we're about a week late on that, but I mean, there's a lot of really unique opinions and specific things that have been highlighted by some and some not by others that we can look at with the RH case. But Bitcoin right now, I mean, right at all-time highs, basically, just under 76K. I saw it go up over 74 during the election last night, which was a new all-time high. ETH, as I mentioned, just in the last couple of hours here, as things have gotten frothy, has started to curl up a bit. Now, its ratio to BTC is still utter horseshit. It's like 0.0355 right now, which is horrible. But
It's almost
I
0.04. We're up to
whoa,
0.39.
whoa. Are you serious right now? Holy
Yep.
shit. Okay. Then
Yep. This
I
nice
underrated it.
juicy candle here going at the same time. So
I'll take that. I'll take that big green right there. But yeah, that is substantial. Okay, so it actually made even a bigger move than I thought. So we're starting to see ETH potentially start to come back, which would be, I mean, this is just perfect timing. Like you see BTC make new all-time highs, Trump wins the election, and all of a sudden ETH wakes up from its slumber to just completely, green candle its way up. So we're obviously going to get into it. Like, the reason for this in the short term is because of the election, but all this time stuff is leading up. I mean, you can assign the election to it. We have FOMC taking place tomorrow, where I think it's a virtual lock that they are going to cut rates by another 25 basis points. Obviously, people not thinking too much about that anymore at this point, but you walk just on the time frame of the cycles. This is the thing that we've talked about for a very long time. People speculated October, November would be the return of bullish times for a while. Bam, here we are right on schedule. So what do you think the forecast is kind of for the rest of the year here? Where do you think the potential is for BTC to go? And then, man, by the time we get to January and you turn the calendar to 2025, I mean, things are just all systems go. So what do you make of this right now?
yeah, it's looking really good. Not how far can it go? I've heard a bunch of people calling for 100,000 by the end of the year. I don't quite see that high. Thinking more 82, 85, maybe another 10 grand by the end of the year. But don't forget, people will take profits at the end of the year as well, for a couple reasons, right? They take them for Christmas. They take them for tax reasons. When things are going up, you want to catch the profits if you can. When things are going down at the end of the year, you want to sell, right? You want to capture those losses. So there is some tax harvesting that goes both ways when you get late into December. And then, a little bit earlier, maybe a few weeks before Christmas, you get some sell off too. People want to buy some nice things for whatever reason it may be. So, I can see 82 to 85. But with as bullish as things are and how they quickly turn around, I mean, this is the daily chart. We've gone from 69,000 to 76, in just one day, basically. So we are having a slight pullback right now, but things can go crazy. I am happy to see this ETH candle. It's getting up to and hopefully making a new higher high here. We still haven't gotten to that 2750 range quite yet. I mean, it might have earlier here. Let me slide this over a little bit. It didn't quite get there. So we do have a bit to go, but that's okay. A little pullback in the action isn't a bad thing. I would like to see it kind of get up into this range where the 200 moving average is, which would put us about 2,900. This is going to come down a hair to meet it. So, but if we can get in this 2,900 range and kind of comfortably chop around there for a little bit before taking off again, I think that would be good. Yeah, everything's looking good. Even the Dow, look at the Dow that just, you get these weird candles because the markets kind of react overnight, because they close at 4:30, 5 o'clock, whatever time they close, Eastern time. And then all of a sudden the next day you have this gap, that just, you could tell some crazy things happened overnight where it just, you've got a missing piece of the, normally candles don't do that unless there's something crazy. Back here was another one where it fell that far.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you could definitely tell there was an election last night. It's very bullish. You've got the S&P also doing a very similar thing, reacting. These are all all-time highs for both. So pretty good overall. Everything's looking good. And like you said, earlier, the FOMC tomorrow, rates are going to get cut again. I think it's just another catapult into some really bullish times here for the next month and a half.
Absolutely. Yeah. I could definitely see into the 80s by the end of the year. And then maybe, really things get crazy in January. So either way, I mean, you can see, I mean, the short term, it's because of the election and everything. But I mean, BTC was primed for this. November, I think, all along. Many, many people said it. I mean, November all along has really been the month people have been looking at. So here we are, and we are seeing it happen. So very nice indeed. Taking a look at the Pulsechain ecosystem, pumpage today, of course. We started to see it last night, and then it's just gotten even better here in the last few hours. We got Pulse at 4 zeros and 517 right now. Pulse X is 4 zeros and a 3, basically. Incentive token is at $2.15. Hex at 1.5 pennies, and eHex at 0021 right now. The hexes are up 25% in the last day. Everything else up basically 10 to 15%. So looking really bullish. I mean, we've kind of had this confirmation that Pulse has, come up off of that double bottom that we saw here over the late summer, pretty much a calendar year after it bottomed out, in 2023. And yeah, starting to move back on up. And I mean, now, you got to think that we are going to leave those numbers in the dust at this point. I mean, not that we're going to go up only necessarily. And obviously today and the last 24 hours are going to be really nice. But I think we've left those low numbers in the dust, though. I don't think we're going to be returning to them at this point. So, yeah, what do you make of where we're at with this ecosystem right now?
Well, I mean, let's talk about Hex. What happened on...
Let's talk about Hex, baby.
What happened on, I guess it was Sunday. I think it was Sunday.
The sell-off.
Almost $1 million USD sell that, I think the guy ate about $100,000 in slippage just by doing it in one transaction. I think it was 90 million, whatever it was, Hex that had sold. And it was crazy to watch that thing just get eaten up. I mean, so if we go back to the hourly candle, you can see even, let's go further, 15. It got eaten up so quickly. These are 15-minute candles, right?
That's insane.
I mean, so this was the buy, and then it just started to boom, 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 buy up. I mean, that was within 15 minutes. It bought all the way back up from here, and then up to here, up to almost 1 cent. It had dropped down to 0.009. 94, and it within 15 minutes it was back up to 1.1 again. So crazy amount of support. People just looking for those, whether they were limit orders or people just paying attention and saw it happen and said, might be the last chance I get for a hell of a good deal on this price. And honestly, since then it has been just, it looks great. So
yeah,
very, very bullish for that. And whoever was defending the price or a group of however many people it was, but that did not last long. So just keep that in mind, man. There's people out there waiting to get good deals that are going to buy it up. If you don't want it, they are. So keep that in mind and, take advantage when you do see a dip, because these prices could be long gone after this cycle.
100%. And that's what we've been talking about for months now, really, is like, as long as Pulse has been, and then we're talking about Hex, but as long as Pulse has been below sack rate, everything's pretty much has been an auto buy. And right here, this last 24 hours, and again, we're not like out of the woods yet. It's not crazy or anything, but you can see how these things do turn on a dime at a price that you were wanting to buy at, or like, maybe I'll be patient in DCA. You suddenly never see again, or may not have a chance at ever getting again, So I think it's best not to split hairs in those instances,
Yeah. And I don't know if it was Rackham, but yes, he did come back. He had, made a video with, I forget who it was. But either way, I don't know if it was him that bought it or who it was, but either way, yes, Rackham Ritual came back to the community after a little bit of a hiatus, and
What did you see his reasoning? Did you see what he said on Twitter?
Well, he said he was going through a divorce.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he needed some time off to take care of whatever.
Yeah.
He also claims that he never dumped anything, which, you know, I know there was a pool of people, a lot of people. There was $20 million of plus of buys that were put into the sacrifice address that came from him and his people. So, you know, I know there were several entities that had big bags, whether, you know, once it got split out, whether that's who sold or not, doesn't really matter. But he claims it wasn't him, that he's been holding the whole time. So there's really no way to prove otherwise. So got to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting to see him back. I mean, look, regardless of what your thoughts are, or suspicions of what he did or didn't do or anything like that, I think to have him back, you know, not knowing anything really, but to have him back for the bull run, I think is really nothing but a good thing, honestly.
Sure.
So I think it's good to have him out there. But yeah, I mean, for Pulse though, I mean, I think we're going to be, I mean, you know, we've obviously in part wanted Ethereum to go up, you know, for us and many of the other altcoins obviously to go up. And that's really the big thing that we've been waiting for. And now that Ethereum may be, you know, this godlike candle against BTC that it's putting in right now, maybe that's going to start to be the catalyst of this ecosystem really, really starting to rise up here. So, yeah, it's looking good. Is there anything else you wanted to look at in the Pulse ecosystem? Or?
I'm just taking a look at the Pulse ETH ratio here.
Yep.
And it's looking pretty strong as well. So on a nice little trend. So yeah, looking good, guys. Looking good.
And if you zoom out of that, I mean, you could see back when Pulse was returning to all-time lows. I mean, we were just in this major, basically consolidation area against ETH for quite some time, like
quite a while.
May or so of this year. So like almost 6 months before it started to go up. Yeah, so that is definitely good.
Yep.
So things looking good with the Pulse ecosystem. The interesting thing is we didn't really, I guess, because again, things move so fast in crypto. There actually was a sell-off after the court date last week, which I think a lot of people suspected, and it did make sense that that would happen, you know, even though we got tremendously bullish news out of that from, you know, every single angle you could possibly imagine, which we'll get to. We did see a sell-off, but now, you know, the next catalyst, Trump wins the election going away, and now we're starting to see it pump. So interesting stuff. Let's go ahead and delve into some takes on the election as we are fresh off it. Not even 24 hours into Trump being declared the victor. How fitting is it also that he seals the deal in Pennsylvania at about 1:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the same state where there was an assassination attempt made on him in July. He comes back to Butler, PA, you know, months later, you know, just recently, and has a ridiculous turnout, and all these people are there. Just insane, like kind of storybook type thing there. So, you know, I don't think neither one of us really had like, we were never like, oh, it's a lock, Trump's going to win it, whatever. Like, I mean, I think we were somewhat confident, but like, you never know with these things because of what we've seen happen in the past. And as we zoom out here, I don't know if you feel this way, Ewok, but as we zoom out and look at 2020, I think it's like becoming even more clear that like that was an anomaly, that was a special election, and some things were clearly probably taken advantage of at that time. Yeah. And that's what had so many of us gun shy this time around. I mean, like many people, you said it the other day, I know many other credible people were saying like, we're not going to know anything about, you know, about these results till Friday and all this stuff. And it's like, well, that's what we were used to with the last election, but we didn't have the volume of mail-in voting this time. And as you've continued to lay out, Republicans were going over these things with a fine-tooth comb this time around after last time. So I guess first off, just give me your interpretation on the results. Because again, this wasn't just like, oh, Trump won the election. This is absolute, utter dominance in every way. It basically was 2016 2.0. I mean, it was basically like the whole Hillary Clinton basket of deplorables thing. And then, you know, Biden calling Trump supporters garbage the other day. It was all the same thing again, where it's like, okay, there's a growing, you know, coalition or people coming behind Trump's coalition, which that I think is the best thing that he has done, is assemble like the RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, like these people who were not at all in any way, literally the opposite of like conservative. You know what I mean? And he's just formed this group behind him, which I think is so great, because it's like you're not really just electing Donald Trump, you're actually electing like this group of great thought leaders and stuff. So I know I'm going all over the place, but this is a win going away, winning the Senate, winning the House, winning the popular vote, everything. So how surprised are you of this, and what is your kind of perspective as we're, a day out basically of the results here?
Well, I knew that people felt that they had to get out. One of the big things was a very telling sign was Elon being on Rogan the day before election day, I believe it was. And it was almost his plea to guys, if you don't vote, and if we don't win this, this could be very well the last election that the Republicans have a chance. Only because of the migrant situation, where they were literally flying them into these cities and these states, and trying to get them certified, trying to get them to be able to vote. It would have thrown everything out
for the wrong candidate there.
Well, I don't think they had enough time to follow through their plan, or they voted for Trump.
Maybe. I don't know.
And it's very possible, but who knows how it played out. Again, you brought up the fact that the one thing that did surprise me is that we did have an answer last night, and I believe people were like, when they wanted to call it at a certain time or whatever, they're like, nope, keep going, we're here, let's do it, let's get it done with. And I think that pushed them to just finish it. And what was there, and there was no funny business going on at 3 a.m. with a truckload of all these things that showed up. You know what I mean? Like last time. So yeah, very surprised. It was called last night. I could have seen it going into, what we were used to from last time, at least a day or two, if not more. But everybody seemed to be on top of it. A lot of eyes, and I think that made a huge difference. That people were willing to stay, get it done, and do whatever it took. So, but yeah, I still feel that, like I said, the Elon podcast definitely had some benefit to it. I think his contest had something to do with it, where they were getting people registered, just get registered and vote. It played out well. I mean, when you look at the numbers, Trump literally had a very similar number of total votes as he did in 2020. It was just that many more than where those other ones came from last time. So surprised to see the consistency of the Republican vote, right? We saw the chart. I know you and I were talking about it earlier today, and how that one anomaly in 2020 just came out of nowhere with all those extra ones. But it's crazy how they've stayed consistent throughout the years. And I don't know if it was around here, I felt like the numbers were low. I felt like people just didn't go out and vote. I was a very low number when I got there at noon, much lower than historic elections. I remember being in the thousands, at least over 1,000 anyway. And I was only 360 or 380 or something like that at noon. So I don't know if they came later or what happened, but this area that I live in is particularly blue, mostly. And it wasn't this time. It wasn't this time at all. So
yeah, that's crazy. How about that?
So yeah, a lot of things got flipped. I was surprised at that, as well as some of the areas that predominantly are blue didn't end up that way.
Or at least we're much closer.
Or at least very close.
Like I forget the exact number, but for New York City, like Manhattan, he lost it, but I mean, he was the closest it was the closest margin of victory ever,
Yeah.
or in a very, very long time for a Democrat to win it. Yeah.
Well, and I think that has a lot to do with him going to the Bronx and doing those things and holding the rallies that he had and talking to the people. You know, it all adds up, right? I mean, but yeah, very, very surprised by the way it played out, and you know, couldn't be more happy. Obviously, you know, you mentioned it at the beginning of the show, but you know, he's definitely pro-Trump because of the crypto reasons. Mostly, I mean, there are many other reasons why I think, you know, we needed to clean some house. I do hope Elon does what he does with the efficiency thing and gets rid of a lot of wasted spending that we have. How many? I forget. He listed how many department 413 different agencies.
Yeah.
And you know, most likely there's not anybody that can name them all and what they do. So
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
forward to
Basically,
that. Looking forward to the whole Gary Gensler thing, which we probably need to talk about because I saw somebody mentioned it
there you
earlier.
go. Viper. Yeah.
He can't fire him. I did look it up, and I will. I wanted to share this now while I'm thinking about it. I'll share this real quick, and I'm just going to read through it, and then we can kind of move on past this because
We have talked in the past, and I'll let you share it. But like, it's cool that Trump says some of the stuff that he says, like "I will fire Gary Gensler." Like he actually doesn't have the authority to do that, but that doesn't mean that by some other means he couldn't kind of be pushed out. So anyway,
but because it says right here, Trump, who was promised to fire Gary Gensler on day one, would have the immediate authority to name a new acting SEC chair, which is essentially doing the same thing. However, if Gary wanted to be a hard ass or be a dick, whatever, he is appointed to his position until April of 2026. It was a 5-year position. Now, historically, these guys resign when the tides change. Like John Clayton left the SEC in December of 2020 ahead of the inauguration of Biden. So Clayton was who Trump had put in for his term. So even though they're 5-year terms, it seems they, you know, leave right before inauguration so that the appointments can be made. But it does say that he would be able to name a new acting SEC chair from, and it has to be from the 5 commissioners that are already there.
Right.
And presumably would name obviously one of the SEC Republican SEC commissioners as chair until he would, you know, remove it and assign somebody else if it got to that point where he did stay through 2026. So that is he can't officially fire him, but he can appoint somebody new to that position. Gary would stay on as somebody that's in that, you know, in that chair.
Right.
Or in the commissioners at least anyway. So,
and it would stand to reason that it would be Hester. I always
Pierce.
forget. Yeah, Hester Pierce. Yeah, because she's kind of been the more so pro crypto member of that organization, and yeah, that would be cool to see. So it sounds like there are many ways Trump could get this done that aren't just flat out like fire Gary Gensler necessarily. So, and like you said too, like, well, and Yellowtail in the chat said he'll resign. I mean,
right.
Gensler, and I have no empathy whatsoever for him, but I mean, he hasn't exactly had a fun tenure. I mean, he's going out doing whatever he wants to do, but I mean, he's basically everybody's bitch. I mean, like whenever he has to speak in front of Congress, he is shaking in fear, literally. You know, they're losing cases left and right with another one that we're going to be talking about tonight on the horizon. Yeah, I don't think he's long for this world. And I mean, don't forget that even the Democrats, I don't know if and Kamala even specifically too, but like the Democrats were even
they were getting fed up. Fed up with them. And you know, don't forget he is buddy with Jamie Dimon and a lot of the guys over there in the banking sector. So he'll be just fine. I'm sure he'll have a job where he can kiss ass over there somewhere and do exactly what they want.
That's exactly what he needs to do. Yeah, he's a yes man. Yeah.
So yeah, he's always been a yes man. And I think he had some pressure though. I mean, I think he was put in that position and he did what they were wanting him to do. um you know the whole choke point, Operation Choke Point thing was real. And
Mhm.
Elizabeth Warren and her cronies probably had some heat on him, or some dirt, whatever, and said, "You're going to do what we tell you to do," and that's how it went down. And that's usually how things play out.
Right.
So
Yeah. Um, yeah, very going to be very interesting to see what Trump does in regards to that. I had another angle of this election that you brought up a great point. The Elon Musk interview thing on Rogan, I think cannot be understated how big of a deal that was. Like it
oh
was
yeah,
maybe kind of odd that it was released like on the eve of the election. So how fast could people go and watch it? But you and me talked about it. I don't think anybody better than Elon this entire cycle like laid out more impassioned, specific reasons on why somebody who may be independent or on the fence or not 100% sure, maybe they just don't find Trump palatable and stuff like that, even though they might have share some of his views. I think Elon laid out like the best reasons ever, to vote that way,
yeah,
and I think that's what actually happened with a lot is just that, I really wanted to talk about the Democratic side of this because they just continue to not learn and not reflect and say that Kamala was a great candidate. It's the American people's fault. Like,
well,
okay, I mean, see how far you get with that one because the common denominator here over the span of 12 years, other than, the election that you fraudulently won using COVID, you basically have installed shit candidate after shit candidate that nobody likes over and over and over again. That is either a straight up bitch nobody likes, like Hillary Clinton, a corpse in Joe Biden, or whatever you want to call Kamala Harris.
yeah,
So, and all these things about like, oh, the identity stuff of like, well, she's a black woman with a Jewish. I heard somebody on the View today, a black woman with a Jewish husband. Okay, what are her policies? I am so sick of like this. I would love to vote for a woman for president if her name was Tulsi Gabbard
yeah,
and she was actually qualified. I mean, I would be first in line to vote for a woman president as long as she had morals, values, and was as strong and admirable as a woman of the stature of like a Tulsi Gabbard. I would be willing to do that. That is not Kamala Harris. So when are these people going to learn? They've been defeated by Trump. Like at this point, the common denominator is you guys. You just are not picking. You had Bernie Sanders, who, regardless of whether you think he's like a psycho old guy and his economic policy was ridiculous, everybody loved him. There was a
mhm,
cult following for him, much like Trump on the Democratic side, and the Democrats muzzled him, engineered Hillary being the candidate, and got him right out of there.
yeah.
You know,
Well, you've
so
got to realize, man, it's not all their fault. It's the media. It's the media that they listen to. It's the media that they're surrounded with. When that is all the information you hear, and when you do your research on Google, that is the biggest Democratic, campaign fund that exists. They donated the most. So when you're surrounded by legacy news media, Google, Facebook that blocks half the stuff that they don't want you to see. I mean, not as bad as it used to. You can't blame these people for thinking all this bad stuff that it just isn't true. But you've got to get them to, I think, at some point look outside of the regular news, the media that they're seeing and filling their brain with, because it isn't true. Half of the stuff is only partial truths, right? Where you say a little bit of one thing and you cut it instead of
mhm,
listening to the whole video that was, it. For example, the fine people on both sides comment. All you had to do was listen to the whole thing to know that's not what he said. So it's just over and over and over again with this style of rhetoric and the media. You can't blame the people because that's what they're hearing. I mean, obviously it is their fault for listening to that stuff, but people that have grown up listening to CBS or NBC or ABC, They don't know any better, man, and that's all they're hearing, and that's what they think is true, unfortunately. So, I think that's one of the big shifts that we're going to see in this term as well. Is people are going to have to be more fair as reporting, or they're going to get canceled. They already are, essentially. You know, you see the ratings for all these news medias down. I saw something earlier today that said something Elon was going to buy CNN for $3 billion. I think it was a hoax type thing, just to kind of poke the bear a little bit. But you know, it would literally take something like that for, and you know, if it's Elon, nobody's going to watch. Those people are probably not going to watch because they're not going to believe it. But you know, that's one of the major talking points that I think when you're trying to reach across to some of these people, that you have to bring up, and you have to get them to look outside of their normal bubble to get their information from, because it's just a lot of it is just not factual. But again, that's all they hear. I remember him. I remember
we could
him.
we could use him.
Yeah,
Right now,
he was
actually.
one of those guys, man.
Yeah, exactly.
He was one of those guys that did report and said, you know, that's I forget what he said, something about, but that's what it is, or I forget how he said it. I kind of remember him. I was young. I was very, very young, but yes, I am old enough to know him.
He's a straight shooter. Yeah, you bring up a good point. The legacy media, which has been dying year in and year out, is dead. I mean, this is, you just said too, like the people that grew up or, you know, were watching those networks throughout the years, which, I mean, even people in their, hell, probably even young 30s at this point grew up having to get their news from them.
Yeah.
But they're just smart enough now and know the other outlets that they're not really looking at that. And the people that have always lived with that legacy media, and when there was a time that you could trust it, they're now aging out, though. I mean, we're getting to a point where these generations are going to understand, not that like, oh, I have to get all my news from Joe Rogan and everything that he says on his, you know, because obviously Rogan has fucked a lot of things up too, but he's also not, you know, he's not saying I am the news, you
Right.
know, objectively. So there's plenty of other places to go than legacy media, and people are just not. We know that they're bought and paid for, and there's just no point watching people who need a paycheck from a network who you know is feeding them opinions and lines to have, when there are independent journalists out there
Mhm.
that don't give a shit and are not appearing on camera with all this makeup on and have, you know, are using scripts and stuff like that. Like there's plenty of people out there. We were just talking about watching election coverage last night. I didn't watch any of the major networks whatsoever. And I watched this, you know, some of you guys in the chat probably even ran across him because he's up to 250,000 subs at this point. But Depressed Ginger is his channel name, and he is a young ginger man. He doesn't seem very depressed. He seems like a good guy.
Hmm.
But he had tremendous election coverage last night.
Yeah.
All of his predictions came true. He had Trump winning all of the swing states. He nailed every single side of it, and he's just an authentic dude on there being himself. And I'm like, and here we have all these other people that have been like pontificating on this stuff for weeks that are completely wrong. All the major networks like adding in all this narrative that we don't need to know at all. And here's this dude just on YouTube with that kind of following doing a great job, you know.
Yeah.
I think we're going to continue to see stuff like that.
Yeah, I think so too. And it'll just gain popularity. And I think, like I said, I think as people start to realize that they've been lied to, and a lot of the false narratives that they say he's going to do, when they don't come true, you know, it's going to just add a little bit to that, where people may start reaching out to other options and other opinions. There, like I said, like you said, there are some very good independent journalists out there that you got to check multiple sources, and if you don't, then you know you're only fooling yourself.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe we can hammer from. I feel like I want to keep talking about this election because it's just been so overwhelmingly positive. But finally, you know, because the big thing is like this is a huge catalyst for crypto. You know, how much will Trump being elected really affect crypto? And a lot of people have spent the better part of the year saying like, hey, look, like things are probably going to pump regardless. Like, we are going to have a 4-year cycle. Things are going to go along with it, even if Kamala would unfortunately win. Now that she's lost, and now that Trump is feeling himself and able to do all these things that he wants to do, really, how much tangible difference do you think it makes for Bitcoin, for crypto this cycle, in terms of performance? Obviously, regulation, that's the big thing, is the calling off of dogs, I imagine, reformation of the SEC, or at least, like we talked about, the removal of Gensler. But just the fact that he's there, even if he wouldn't come through with all these things he's promised about crypto, which I doubt he'll come through with all of them, but just that we have somebody in there who's not an adversary, but is actually like, at the very least, letting the industry go. But he's actually engaging it. I mean, he's actually like, his sons and stuff are working in DeFi and stuff like that. What do you think tangibly it will mean for this bull cycle? Is it the difference between BTC go to 120K to doubling that to 240K? Like, what, maybe that's impossible to say, but what do you think the tangible differences are?
I think it's sizable. I think if the regulation things kind of slow down, if they stop throwing cases at anybody that's got a crypto, for the right reasons. Obviously, you don't want these celebrities pushing pump and dump things, getting paid to do it without disclosing it, pushing that type of thing. That's what they need to go after, right? There are so many scammers out there that don't get caught because they're after the wrong people half the time. So I really think if they want to do it the right way, they're going to go after the right people. I think it will instill a lot more confidence in the regular people. I don't the non-crypto people at this point, and I think it will cause a chain reaction to where it could. Now, I don't know if it's going to double. I don't know if the difference is double because the people that are getting in, but it is the economy, right? And I think that kind of spins back to it as to where we're heading down a very dark path with the inflation and the spending and the wars and the things of that nature, where is if we get this turned around where we do have peace and we do have a healthy economy and we are drilling our own gas and being self-sustainable more so, I think it will trickle down to crypto. And I could definitely see a third to 2/3 higher, maybe not double, but it's going to have a direct impact, I think. So, yeah, I mean, obviously Trump is worried about other things. Like, crypto's not at the front of his, like Viper Style says. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're focused on more country things than crypto, but he did bring it up and he did make it a talking point. And, I think he sticks by what he said, and tries to clean up the mess that has been made over the past couple of years, and innovate. With somebody like Elon providing guidance along the way, he's clearly going to be part of his team or his advisor in one way or another. You've got some very smart people around him. Vivek's another one. I don't know what his stance on crypto is. I think it's positive though. So, when you get people talking to you about these things where the innovation can grow finally, and you can get some more of those things in the United States, it's going to help overall, right? It's going to help onboarding. And that's kind of the goal, is to onboard people into this space. So, more people talking about it, the more popular it becomes, the more mainstream it becomes. And now what they said, something about the government wants to buy 200,000 Bitcoin a year for the next 5 years or something like that. They would like to have a million Bitcoin on their balance sheet. How can that not be bullish? Because that trickles down everywhere else. So yeah, it could, if they do that alone. I mean, 200,000 isn't a whole lot. But the more rare it gets, definitely the more it's going to affect that price.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bullish either way. And yeah, I think Viper, I forget who said it now, but that he has other things to worry about. That's definitely true. I mean, I think he's going to focus on, Ukraine, Russia, the multiple wars. He's going to be focusing on stuff like that. But at the very least, we're just happy that it's not an administration that actively wants to hurt crypto, which is
Right.
what we've been dealing with for the last 4 years. So,
Right. Just
yeah.
polar opposite, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So that's good enough for me. So, did you have any other kind of final thoughts on the election or anything, Ewok?
No, man, I think we've exhausted it, or
Yeah, I think so.
beat the dead horse, so to speak.
Yeah, I think so too. But amazing, awesome. Still kind of can't believe it myself. We'll just see what kind of comes in here over the next few days. But very insane evening. So good stuff all around. If you guys are here and enjoying the stream, please do us a favor. Smash the like. We appreciate you being here. Obviously, if you support real DeFi, support the Trump pump, support us as well. We very much appreciate you guys being here. We got to get into the RH case against the corrupt SEC, the motion to dismiss from last week. Again, we're spoiled with positive news lately, overwhelmingly positive last week. So on Thursday, Halloween, hundreds, well, actually, I don't know if hundreds ended up showing up. I think it was
Not
like
quite.
75, 85 showed up for the SEC and RH case. Courtroom allowed about 60, so they packed it in, and they actually had an overflow room as well. So again, Nuclear Herbs, the Pulsechain attorney, not that and I don't mean he's an official one, just the guy within our community that people follow, obviously. But he was there and he talked about, like, look, these judges aren't going to see anybody in a courtroom at a motion to dismiss hearing. So the fact that this is packed to the gills and needing another room has a huge effect basically for her. I'm just kind of going through my notes here and then we'll really hit everything hard. But as far as like the turnout, first of all, how amazing is that, Ewok, that everybody did come through? Obviously, RG3 had already planned out the Pulse tour to be there as well. And then the next day they had a stoppage there and did the Pulse tour and everything like that. We saw pictures, everybody dressed nice and stuff. Everybody was streaming from outside, Crypto Coffee, SJ. I saw a lot of people streaming from outside. Yeah. I saw like signs like anti-Gensler and anti-SEC signs and pro Richard Hart signs they were outside with. But what did it just say to you, first off, that like this many people did show up, like just how crazy it was that all these people showed up to show the judge that, like, yeah, do you think that we were scammed? Because look how many people are actually here for this thing. First off.
No, it was pretty awesome. Now, I do believe that originally there were supposed to be over 200. And that was apparently before the date change and everything got pushed back to happen on Halloween. But still, for being Halloween, it was a great turnout. One of the things that I was kind of disappointed, but totally understood why it happened, and we brought this up on the show last week, was the fact that some of the lawyers had said, they would do something after the case, obviously, but they chose to keep it separate, which might have been, the right decision, the better decision. It does suck that it didn't happen because there was discussion of it originally, but they didn't meet with them. But they did get to talk to them after the case, right? They did stick around a little bit to talk to some people after the case. And, I believe Nuclear Herbs actually talked to him for a little while and they knew who he was. I thought that was pretty cool, where they knew who he was and they knew a couple other of the Hexagons too. So they're following along, man. They're paying attention. And that goes a very long way. But yeah, it was just awesome. The turnout, the mood, everybody was in really good spirits. I know the DGen Roundtable guys ordered, I forget how many, 15, 20 pizzas. And they kind of chilled in the park there for lunch. And just, it was cool. It was cool for people to hang out, talk to each other. And just the camaraderie alone. So, it was pretty awesome. And it went rather well, which I'm sure we're going to get into all of that too.
Yeah. So first off, just the fact that so many people showed up, fantastic, and definitely clearly had an impact on the judge. The biggest home run I think that we got out of this, that we really hit unknowingly, is just how great Judge Amon was. She was ridiculously prepared for this, which, you know, you expect of a judge. But I think with a case like this, some people with crypto, and especially something as DeFi as Pulsechain and stuff like that, you don't know how well they're going to be versed in this. And you hope that you don't get somebody who's totally ignorant and is just like, well, I only just listen to what the SEC has to say. I mean, to me, that wouldn't be a judge doing their job whatsoever. Right. But either way, she showed up unbelievably prepared, knew exactly what she was talking about, knew what questions to asked good questions. She was really, outside of obviously RH's representation and his attorneys, she was the major boon for us here. She did fantastic. She grilled the SEC multiple times, and of course asked appropriate questions to RH's attorneys as well, which I think that they handled far, far better than the SEC attorneys did. Let me see the best way to go. Let's first, just as a summary, bring up Nuclear Herb's summary tweet, and I will read through that. And then we'll go. We got part of the transcript that is absolutely an utter embarrassment for the SEC that we have to read you guys here in a minute. But okay, this comes from Nuclear Herb. This was his kind of quick and dirty thoughts after the whole thing. So number one, he says Richard's team is fucking stellar. So I think we knew that. The judge was very prepared and asked a lot of pointed questions that she obviously needed direct answers to in order to make her decision. Richard's team in general gave more specific and definitive answers to the judge's questions. The SEC had trouble clearing the hurdle of proving domestic securities transactions. This is big. That alone could end the case. When the judge asks you, where does the blockchain live, which is what we put on the thumbnail for tonight, and you can't answer, that's a problem. And man, I told you the other day, what a memeable quote by her. Where does the blockchain live? I love it. Number 5, we not only packed the courtroom full, but needed an overflow room to hold everyone that showed up. That will definitely make an impression on the judge. 6, did I mention that Richard's team is gangster? Holy fuck, these guys are good. Michael Liftick and David Kirk argued today. I'm just glad I never have to go up against these guys. 7, expect 60-ish days for a decision. Could be denied entirely, granted in part, or granted in full. I don't make predictions, but I do like how the hearing went. Number 8, Matty Allen and I just did a space. We discussed a lot of the details about what happened. Blah, blah. But then that space was fantastic. I listened to that on that day right after the hearing. It was great. Yeah. So kind of just some thoughts from Nuclear Herbs. And I also jotted down more of what his thoughts were from listening to that space as well. Let me see here. I'm just trying to see what he didn't cover in that. The SEC, or excuse me, Richard's attorneys, I think it was Liftick, pointed out multiple times that he felt that the SEC was in real time trying to amend their complaint in the courtroom, which is what we're going to get to a bit here with the bookmark, the other bookmark we have. The biggest of all is that the SEC had trouble proving jurisdiction. The judge again asked, where does the blockchain live? And they had no answer. SEC tried to get everyone in the room. Oh, this was a great moment. Nuclear Herbs mentioned this. At one point, the SEC tried to get everyone in the room to raise their hand to show, like, well, what if we get a raise of hands in here and see how many of these investors are from the U.S.? And the judge said, no, I don't think that's necessary. Now, it's a ridiculous way to try to prove a point and wouldn't prove their point anyway. But Nuclear Herbs actually said, in a way, I almost wish they would have followed through with it.
Yeah.
Because you'd have seen that there were people from multiple countries there, actually.
And I believe there were, 8 countries represented?
I think 10. I think it was more.
Maybe 10?
Yeah.
Okay. Crazy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tommy, for the super chat. 1999 super chat from Tommy.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it, Tommy. No comment, just a super chat. Well, appreciate you being here, man. Appreciate you. Let's see. Raise their hand. The judge also said that, so many times the SEC kept going in on, well, he raised this money and then he's off buying a diamond and buying these cars and buying Gucci, whatever the hell. And the judge said that is he not entitled to do whatever he wants with the funds after receiving them? Can he do what he wants? It's his money now. He delivered a product. They
Yeah.
keep acting as if he didn't deliver a product or as if there wasn't one made.
Yeah,
Which
and that was the first thing that she said. He did what he said he was going to do. He delivered the product. So where's the problem?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What, the price is down? Like there's nothing to really say. Um, now so that's kind of the good meaty stuff from in the courtroom in terms of like next steps and everything. So Herbs also said he said there will not be a trial here, so any kind of fear of like some lengthy back and forth trial is not going to happen. It'll be a summary decision regardless. The longest this could take, he speculated, would be into Q3 of 2025. Even if none of the motion to dismisses are granted, partial motion to dismiss could be granted, or all. Odds seem to be up to at least. I know he's not giving what he thinks the chances are, but he went from saying that I have heard him say this before, that he thought it would be about a 30% chance of this motion to dismiss going over as compared to like a normal 10% chance for most of these. But I mean, I heard him basically call this like a toss up at this point.
Yeah.
So that would imply to me at the very least 50-50, if not
50.
if not better. Yeah, partial or fully dismissed could both happen. Herb said, 60-ish days for a decision. So that would basically put us at like New Year's Eve at this point. So we're probably looking into the new year. But it depends. It'll depend on if she wants to get stuff out and done like that week before Christmas break for everybody, or you just wait till the New Year after that. So yeah, what do you make about that? So I mean, we have all these angles here of like partial dismissal, full dismissal, continuing on, and we'll just get a summary at some point. What do you ultimately think after all? I mean, again, this is all like extremely bullish. It went very, very well. What is your gut telling you will happen in terms of her decision and next steps, and what kind of time frame?
I think honestly that we get a partial dismissal. I don't think it will be a full dismissal. I think there's going to be some issues that she just throws out and says, we're not even going there. This is not what you're arguing. She's basically defended several of the arguments already. And like you said, it was almost like they were trying to change it on the fly because they realized some of their talking points after the arguments back and forth. They realized how weak they really were. I think the first thing is the jurisdiction. Obviously, that's the main argument, because if you don't have that, you can't have anything else, right?
Right.
Something tells me that it's not going to be a full dismissal. I really hope it is. And these guys keep bringing up Finland. When you hear go through the whole document and the whole transcript of it, they mention Finland a couple times. I also heard somebody else talking about something going on in Finland as well. But that is coming from Cleo, who we can't trust at all, right? Nothing that comes out of Cleo's mouth should be trusted at all. He's the one that submitted this to the SEC in hopes of getting a finder's fee in the first place.
He actually, just side note, he crept his way into that spaces with Maddie and Nuclear Herbs, actually.
Oh, did
he? Under an alt account, and KDP actually outed him. She went in and interrupted him at one point and said, guys, this is Cleo, just FYI. And then they just booted him out of there. He kept trying to like, what if this happens? And what if it'll just fall to this jurisdiction and all this.
Yeah.
Anyway, the dude has no fucking life. I mean,
it's crazy. Anyway, I'm surprised everybody doesn't just have him blocked. Like, I don't know how he keeps sneaking his way in, but either way, all accounts probably.
Yeah.
I part of me seems to think that the way she was prepared, the way she understands it, we do get dismissal. The other part kind of thinks that she lets some of it go, that there is jurisdiction for some of it. I think that's pushing it though, because again, the whole question, where does the blockchain live? You can't prove it. The timeline that happened, where all the stuff happened after the fact of the Hex launch, the Pulsechain sacrifice, the Pulse X sacrifice. Let's pull that up for 1 second, because I think it's important. When you look at this chart right here, and you see, you've got, here's the adoption amplifier, right? And these are all the important dates. Here's the Pulse chain sacrifice, which, people kept sending shit in the whole time. Here's the Pulse X sacrifice. Well, here are the dates that these guys are alleging, and it is literally after all of this stuff technically ended. It says Hart makes virtual appearance at the Hex conference.
That's
so what? So what?
They keep trying to say that he engineered, like he is the one that engineered all of those events, and it was geared to U.S. investors. And
little do they know, it was put on by the community, and he was invited, and he came to speak. Hex appeared in person in an interview in Miami. Well, okay, so he was here helping his mom, visiting his family, and happened to go. I think he flew in and out of Miami probably, and happened to go on the Fresh and Fit, I think is what it was, the one podcast that he was on. And then again, another virtual appearance at the PulseCon. So all of these happened after, which, if he was promoting it, don't you think he would have done it before? These dates that they're talking about, like, I mean, yes, he live streamed, but he never targeted anything American. It was crypto. And again, the blockchain, where does the blockchain live? Well, you can't answer that question. It's free to everybody that uses it, so that was some of the big things that stood out to me. Just the whole timeline, and why I think there is a decent chance, but it's just historically, I don't see judges just saying, dismiss it with prejudice, which means they can't bring it back up. That would be the ideal goal. However, I don't know what the administration change will have anything to do with you like to think that it wouldn't, but it may. So yeah, I mean, I think it's wishful thinking at this point. It would be nice. It'd be really nice, but I think we're going to get some sort of case. But it will only be partial. It's only going to be some of these things. They basically stopped talking about Hex because it's a finished product, because we know it's not, there isn't. I think that's kind of gone. I think the only thing that will come up now is the sacrifice deal. And I think that may be the only part of this case that gets seen.
A point that you were making about, they keep acting like him being at these virtual events was some kind of, like, as if he orchestrated them and that he was, targeting U.S. investors. Actually, if anything, how many personal in-person meetups did he have that were all throughout Europe? Like even before that time. Yeah. So that was all in Europe. That was all of them, every single one. Yeah. So
the only thing he did in person was overseas. He did one in Amsterdam. He did one in Portugal, I believe. There was another
Copenhagen
one in
or something.
Amsterdam, and maybe Copenhagen. Yeah, there were several personal meetups where they would just kind of show up at a hotel and say, "Hey, we're here. Anybody want to come out tonight?" kind of thing. So yeah, they were all overseas.
Yeah. There was one other bit of that I wanted to acknowledge. Now I'm forgetting what it is. I agree. I tend to agree with you. I'm still not going to be as aggressive to say that there's a full dismissal out of this, but I do think we'll probably have some kind of partial one. That I don't know how she could exactly do that, because again, like you said, with the jurisdiction thing and the whole, where does the blockchain live? that seems like it kind of just erases it right there. I think what may happen is there is a partial dismissal, and whatever scraps the SEC is then left with to try to make some semblance of a bullshit case out of would just be a lame duck,
Yep.
Failure mission from day one, basically. So,
Yep.
we really could not have turned up smelling better roses than we did after this thing. I mean, this is just fantastic, really.
And again, she has to
judge.
grant jurisdiction, right? I mean, that's the first step. So,
yeah,
even that's a toss up. I mean, so yeah, we're looking good. We're looking very good.
Definitely. To the point of the SEC changing their complaint live in person. If you guys want to see them caught with their pants down, this is fantastic. So this is the transcript. This is right out of the transcript from the courtroom. And there's probably many, many other parts, but we found this one particularly interesting. Hexologist tweeted it out the other day. So anywhere where you see the court is going to be Judge Amon speaking, and then Mr. Caruvia or whatever is going to be the guy from the SEC.
Yeah.
So,
do you want me to read it to help save your voice?
I'll give it my best shot here. So,
right, go ahead.
So the judge says, "Let me clarify one thing, which will shorten the arguments. Addressing the SEC, you have abandoned, I take it, any alter ego theory that you had set forth in the original complaint. That's gone." And what she's referring to is the Richard Hart and his alter egos of Pulsex, and Hex, which was on the short list of most moronic, you would say, things that were in the complaint. The SEC representative says, "Your Honor, it's not part of this motion. It's not relevant to this motion." She says, "Have you abandoned those claims or not?" Counsel raised the issue, she's talking about RH's attorneys, that they weren't viable claims, that the Pulsechain, the blockchains themselves weren't entities. Are you pursuing that or not pursuing that? SEC says, "I think with respect to alter ego, Your Honor, we allege that because we had some facts to suggest that Mr. Hart has control over these entities, that he's controlling the websites, etc." She says, "But you've named the blockchains themselves as defendants. What's the basis for doing that? Are you continuing to do that or maintain that they're defendants?" SEC says, "Right, Your Honor. Again, it's not relevant for this motion, but we are," now he's stuttering, "the reason we did that in the first place was because, again, to the extent there's an argument that Mr. Hart is not responsible for any of the conduct that's alleged in the complaint, that these are all with the responsibility of Hex and Pulsechain and PulseX because they exist on the blockchain. He has no control over them. They're their own thing. We wanted to ensure when we pled that we are covering the entire scheme, that we're covering all possible defendants. So that's why, ... Judge says, "I'm sorry, why isn't it relevant to the motions? It was part of their motion to dismiss, I think." He says, "Right, and we haven't responded to that argument, Your Honor." She says, "So you're agreeing that they should be dismissed then?" He says, "It's not part of our It's not part of our theory for why the court would have personal jurisdiction." So they just tried to sweep this ridiculous shit under the rug because they know it's ridiculous shit and that they were called out on it by RH's attorneys. And she basically uses like the Socratic method or whatever you want to say to get them into admitting that they fucked this up entirely, basically. So insane. Yeah. What do you make of that exchange?
It's just comical. You know, as you said, the big thing is that she's very prepared. She understood this. She read it very thoroughly, did her homework, knew that they had left it out, and you know, it just goes to them kind of flying by the seat of their pants as to what part of this is she going to pick up on and kind of run with, and what part not. And you know, again, the things that, you know, I remember Nuclear saying at one point, you have to be very careful about what you put in your original complaint because you can't add to it after that, right?
You can't even really edit it.
You shouldn't edit it. You can drop things, and that's kind of what she's asking them right here is you're not even talking about this part of the complaint. are you getting rid of it? So, she, again, just very prepared, very on top of it, and giving these guys a hard time, which they deserve because they weren't prepared. Again, this is a throw it at the wall, see what sticks kind of thing, and she's not having it. It's pretty clear that she's not having it. So I love it. I love the response. I love the fact that that's pretty much all gone, right? I mean, according to them, they're saying, right, we haven't responded, and it's not part of our theory. So again, this all goes back to jurisdiction, and I think that's what we're arguing right now. It's not all the other stuff. So whether the other stuff even comes up, I think this pushes us in the direction of dismissal, because again, just that comment alone, man, where does the blockchain live? It makes me think that she's really considering it. There's no target here. There's really nothing that we should be doing about it. So yeah. The more I talk about it myself, the more I'm kind of pumping myself up to the dismissal side. But you've got to be cautiously optimistic about it. But I think it's great.
Well, we're on a hell of a run of bullish news, so that would be quite the insane bullishness if we got that as a Christmas present.
And I do want to bring one thing up. I told you I was going to mention this. We kind of read through these this little snippet here, but and I brought these guys up earlier too because they were at the thing. But DGen Roundtable on their channel. It was the two of those guys and SJ. They all did a read through of the entire transcript. So, SJ was the judge. She read the judge part. One guy read the Richards lawyers, and the other guy read the SEC lawyers. So, pretty cool if you just want to watch and listen to it rather than read through the whole thing. It is kind of, obviously it's lawyer talk. And if you don't enjoy reading, but listening, check it out because it was pretty cool to hear some of the things that were said as it played out. I didn't catch the whole thing. I caught most of the later part of it. But it was, I was working and doing other stuff while I was listening to it. So it was kind of neat to hear how it played out and the exact transcript of it. So go ahead and check that out on DGen Roundtable's channel.
Definitely an awesome idea to do that. But I am with you. I mean, the thing with judges, and I know even from my own experience, is like it can really seem, and I'm not saying that she's going to do a 180 over how the vibes were from her. I don't mean that. But it can really seem like, oh man, she may dismiss this thing. Like she was grilling the SEC. She's on our side. It can seem like that because a good judge is extremely professional and stone-faced like a poker player. Now, even though, they will have facial expressions or they may like say or certain things some ways that you can pick stuff up. At the end of the day, you don't know what they're going home and thinking. And not only that, she has all this time to reflect. So what happens in the courtroom is one thing over the course of an hour or two. She has a lot of time to reflect. And she, while it may seem like, wow, I mean, it seems like she wants to dismiss this thing. She may have time to reflect. And I do think at the very least, we will be getting a partial dismissal. I don't think it's just going to move forward totally as is with how unprepared that they are,
No, I don't know.
And even if it did, she's extremely skeptical of the SEC here. You can tell. So, well, I think we're sitting pretty no matter what. And again, this is something I've kind of said a lot for a long time. I think other people have too, is like, we shouldn't really be taking the SEC that seriously. I know we're sitting here dedicating a whole segment to this tonight because it is something that happened to our ecosystem. But I mean, if you take, people just don't take them seriously anymore. They're losing every single crypto lawsuit. I mean, people just, and now again, this Trump victory, it's not going to hurt the price of this ecosystem. This is more so a badge to wear if we beat these fuckers.
Yep. That's exactly what it is. It will maybe help some of the gatekeeping stop. It will be a badge of honor where we can say, listen, we faced the SEC and won. What more do you want? Flawless operation for for what, in less than a month, it will be 5 years. I mean, what more do we have to go through for you guys to stop saying scam? Win the SEC case, flawless operation for 5 years. Yes, the price is down, but everything's down. So, that's exactly what it is. It is a badge of honor. It is something that we can, move forward and say, you guys gotta allow us on something exchange wise or whatever it may be, or just stop with the scam. So yeah, I think that's more important than anything. But you're right; they can't hurt us. They can't stop it. Nothing can stop that contract from running. Right?
Right. Exactly.
You know,
Great man once said that. Yeah.
Great man once said that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, great stuff all around. Yeah, I couldn't be more thrilled with everything that we got out of that. And most of all, again, this community showing out for Richard, showing out for the ecosystem and stuff like that, I think was just fantastic. And I'm sure left quite an impression. And who knows how much she's thinking about that as she makes her decision too.
Yeah.
So that's great too.
Good stuff.
Let's wrap up real quick on this kind of extra factor that does kind of have to do with that. And I'll let you take the reins a bit on this to conserve my little voice. Sami mentioned this the other day, and I found this really intriguing because I've been thinking about this too. But the concept that Richard was going to kind of go, not like away or on the run like some people have intimated, but like kind of go silent or go into the background a lot more than he was last cycle, even without the SEC case ever being brought forward, to kind of mimic Satoshi anyway. As difficult as that may be for a guy like Richard, who, wants to talk about the principles of blockchain, is very opinionated, likes to get in spicy arguments, and is very smart. But it does. I mean, that idea, him going away and letting the products run on their own, which is, regardless of why he's done it, he has been doing that with this ecosystem. I think it kind of goes with a lot of principles that he believes in. Do you think? I will get your thoughts on that. But will he ever really come back? Do you think in whatever you would call full force streaming again, like after this case is over? When and what might that look like? But yeah, what are your thoughts on all that?
Hell yes. Knowing Richard for as long as I've listened to him, I mean, I don't know him personally, but I've listened to every word he said in almost every one of his videos. I don't think I've not seen any of them. As many times as he knocks Satoshi for doing exactly that. That's the big thing. He always says, I'm here doing more than Satoshi's doing. And I don't even like Bitcoin, but I'm here protecting your shit. You know what I mean? That's number one. Number two, he's very prideful. He wants people to do well. He wants people to succeed. He wants to make 1 million millionaires. He said it. He would love nothing more than to make a group of people so successful that they've got nothing better to do than spend their money on longevity research, because that's one of the things that's passionate to him. What better way to do it, right, than to create a bunch of wealthy people? Love, what's that? I love me some me. Yeah, he does. And he's very smart. So no, I don't think he will. Maybe one day, way down the road, whenever those type of things have happened. But if this case gets dismissed, I'm willing to bet that within 2 days you're seeing a live stream from him.
Yeah.
I think he probably would have to wrap things up with his lawyers and get the final okay to go ahead and do things, because we all know that's why he's silent. Man, they said, don't do anything. We are in a very good place. Just don't. It's not worth saying a whoopsie and getting caught. You know what I mean? For something that you either A, didn't mean, or A, didn't say, that was interpreted the wrong way. A or A, whatever. A or B. There's, I just think there's way too much risk involved. And I do think once this is over, once it's, and even if there is a case, once that's over, I think he's back. He's not the type to just sit back and let things happen. He wants to tell people how great his product is. Simple. We all know Hex is great for what it is and what it does, and people still don't understand it. So, he needs to shout it from the rooftop. We need to shout it from the rooftops as well. But coming from him with the several 100,000 followers, he hits a lot more people. So, yeah, I don't think he ever goes away. I mean, not for a long time anyway.
I'm with you. Do you think though, maybe because I think you kind of agree with me on this, like his plan all along, like he likes to kind of drain the swamp, so to speak, as far as like if people are going to sell, get them out of here,
Yeah.
So I think he does kind of proactively, whether it's just him not being around or whatever it is he has to do or not do to get people disinterested to get them to sell.
Yeah.
That we're going to eventually anyway. I
Yeah.
mean, you do think he strategically uses that though, don't you? Because
Sure.
he seems to like that idea, and I think it's the best idea.
Well, it's one of the only ways to get the true believers to continue to follow you. If people are losing faith, whatever, in him, and they do sell, it's better for the price anyway. So all of these things add up. But yeah, he's only. I mean, I'm sure that is part of a tactic that kind of just coincided with his lawyer's advisement. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't think it's just that he's being that strategic right now, to not say anything, or maybe he is, and maybe the lawyers said we don't care, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think they're going to say, for the case that we have, we're in really good shape right now. Don't F it up. You know what I mean? Whether it's by mistake or not, just it's not worth it. So, yeah, I mean, yes, definitely probably a strategic play as well. Can't hurt. And it's worked. There's a lot of people that have sold their entire position that are no longer here. So, you know what that means? They're not going to be there when it goes up. They're not going to be there to sell. So,
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think the minute that he's able to come back, he will. But I think he does leverage, like, going away, not going away, but you know what I mean? Just being more in the background during bearish times. So if people are going to get shaken out, let them get shaken out because they were the non-believers anyway. So,
Yep.
Well, this has been a fantastic show. I think that's about going to wrap us up. Some great thoughts on the election. Couldn't be a better result than what we got. Trump landslide victory, winning the Senate. I think they're about to attain the House as well, or maintain the majority in the House. He wins the popular vote.
Yeah.
Incredibly bullish RH hearing last week. I mean, yeah, just amazing stuff all around. So
one of the things we didn't mention was that there's 205 pro crypto in the House now, and 14 more pro Senate. So that's huge too.
Brian Armstrong, I think, tweeted that, right? From
He
Coinbase.
did.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, it like I said earlier, you feel like you want to pinch yourself because it's been like 3 years of horrible news all around. And now we just have these unbelievably bullish things happening right now, right on schedule, oddly enough. Yeah, it's just I give us permission to feel good. I give us permission to feel good about this and for our bags to pump, I think. So yeah, lots of great stuff coming down the pike. Do you have any kind of final message about all these bullish things and how we're looking the rest of the year, Ewok?
Yeah, if there's any dips, I would DCA. Pick it up while you can. It's not going to be this juicy probably for another couple of years, I would imagine. So, get it while you can. Let's all get rich together.
That's right. Amen. And if there is a window to buy and it's a period of time, the window's starting to come down, like definitely starting to come down now. After this Trump victory, man, I don't know how much time we're going to have. So, Yep, I am throwing in all the fiat I got as soon as any comes in. So we appreciate all you guys. Too many to count, but Dejan, Moonboy, Yellowtail, Viper Styles, Hex Girl. There was a lot more earlier. Mr. Chinks, obviously, Tommy Barnitas. Appreciate the super chat earlier there. Appreciate all you guys. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. We do this every single Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Valiant Low Key, appreciate you, brother. We will be here next week, November 13th at 6:30 p.m. And I'm sure a lot more to talk about as we find out more about the Trump takeover and just the crazy bullish news that's going on with all of crypto right now. So for Crypto Ewok, this has been Broke Boy Crypto. We'll catch you guys next week right here on the Creed of Crypto live stream.
See ya.